Here. Many of you probably remember the movie My Cousin Vinny, and it's a pleasure to be back in the place of my youth here. When I was asked to talk about severe weather, and I was also asked if I could connect my talk to the East Coast, and I will try to do that. The beginning of my talk will be an argument that I really am a Bostonian. I really am. My heart really is in the East. I'm going to talk about some of the storms that I've chased over the years. I'll talk a little bit about the science. This is a banquet speech. It's Saturday night. No equations. I removed the equations. I removed the graphs. I'm mainly going to show pictures. And at the very end of my talk, I'll talk quite a bit about VORTEX2, which some of you may have heard about. And then at the very, very end of my talk today, I'll show you the results of my storm chase yesterday when I flew in from Boulder. Hey, what are my early influences on the East Coast? The Worcester tornado, June 1953. I've always said I was 5 years old. It turned out I was 4. And I'll never forget that day. I was in Boston, the Boston area, and my mother came running out. I was outside playing, and she said, "Hal, you've got to come inside the house. There's a tornado in Worcester. And tornadoes take little boys and lift them up in the air and throw them." I didn't believe any of that, but I knew I had to go in the house. And it was a strange day. I mean, I remember it to this day. It was yellowish and sort of eerie looking outside. Nothing like I've ever seen before. All right, what also happened? Well, back in the olden days, before cable, when there were only 3 television stations, we had an outdoor TV antenna. And while I was watching television, lightning struck the antenna, and the TV blew up right in front of me. That got my attention. In 1954, Hurricane Carol came by. And I remember when the eye came by, I remember running outside to look at the damage. And I remember it got calm and the wind shifted. I remember I had trouble getting back to the house because the wind really started blowing from the other direction. And there's one of New England's many snowstorms. That's for Paul Costa. So, and also Don Kent. Does anyone here remember Don Kent? Yes. Don Kent was my inspiration. He was on television. There were no computer graphics. He wrote with, couldn't have been a magic marker even. It must have been chalk. Great images. He used to talk about the frost on the cranberry bogs tonight. And he was there for the tornadoes, the hurricanes. When you grow up in Boston, seeing all that weather, it really is amazing. Tornadoes, hurricanes, thunderstorms, everything. And there's a picture of me with less gray hair. Another one for Paul. This was in the year 1961. This was, I think, when at the time that John F. Kennedy was inaugurated. There were a series of large snowstorms, and here's my grandfather clearing out his vintage car, except it wasn't vintage back then. And then finally, as proof that I am from Boston, there's Cardinal Cushing and me. Anybody remember Cardinal Cushing? Oh boy, okay. I'm a nice Jewish boy, and I got to meet the Cardinal. None of my Catholic friends ever got to meet the Cardinal. I am really from Boston. Okay. So, how do you study tornadoes? Well, this is the easy way. You'd like to have a tornado in your laboratory. This is over at NCAR, by the way. And you just go to it, you put your hands around it, and grab it, and make your measurements. It's not that easy, as you all know. Back in 1972, I was still in graduate school at MIT, and a person by the name of Bruce Morgan at Purdue suggested that we should go study tornadoes by driving a tank into them. And people, I think, thought he was crazy. In fact, there was an article in the Bulletin of the AMS about this. Well, it's not so crazy because it's now done. And this is the tornado intercept vehicle during Vortex. And this is a tank, and it has been driven through a number of tornadoes. Between you and me, I doubt whether this is going to teach us anything scientifically valuable, but it makes for great television.
Did you drive the tank?
I did not drive the tank, no. Here's one of my favorite New Yorker cartoons. After the aftermath of the tornado, I like this person hanging up in a branch. That's not funny. The weather looks great for the rest of the year. I always loved this cartoon, and then I saw this in real life. After the May 3rd tornado outbreak, this is right next to Norman and Moore. It really does look like that. I mean, you chase tornadoes, and you actually see the damage done by a tornado right after the tornado has struck. I get a sickening feeling in my stomach. Really makes you want to go out there and learn about them, learn more about them. So there I am, out doing what I like doing the best, taking pictures of tornadoes. All right, I'm going to show you a few pictures, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of storm chasing. Storm chasing actually began in the 1950s. Roger Jensen was the first storm chaser, and then Dave Hoadley chased. And these were real amateur storm chasers. They weren't meteorologists. And I'll never forget seeing Dave Hoadley's photographs at a conference back in 1977. And I said, gee, I'd like to do this. Here's a picture of an LP supercell, low precipitation supercell, approaching Norman. And the architecture of a severe storm. Probably many of you know this, but this is the anatomy of a supercell thunderstorm. And you probably have all seen the famous photograph showing the wall cloud, the tornado, and the precipitation core, and so on. But you probably have seen very few photographs showing the entire storm at once. Getting the visual model of a storm has been something like what people do with dinosaurs. You ever see a dinosaur skeleton in a museum? I remember I once asked someone at the museum, how did you ever get all this together? And the answer was, they don't. It's a composite. It's sort of like hamburger. The dinosaur, there's a leg from this dinosaur, and an arm from that dinosaur, and a head from another dinosaur. This is an entire severe storm. I took this from a NOAA airplane from a distance of 40 miles. So clear out in southwest Kansas, you can see the tornado. And maybe only of you in the front row can see the tornado. The wall cloud, the backshear and anvil, the precipitation core, and Mattis. And this is a classic supercell. And when we did this back in the 1970s, this was new stuff. People hadn't done this before. So we began the chase with the National Severe Storms Laboratory. And the idea was, let's go and see what animals there are out in the zoo. Let's see what's out there. Let's see what supercell storms look like. Prior to that, most scientists didn't know what a supercell storm looked like. If they were lucky, maybe they saw one in their entire lifetime. So the other thing that we did was we provided ground truth for the Doppler radar back at the Severe Storms Laboratory in Norman. Remember, this is before NEXRAD. And we were trying to prove that you could use Doppler radar to issue warnings. And we would go out to many, many storms, and we would be told, there's a tornado vortex signature, there's a mesocyclone, what do you see? We don't see anything. We see a wall cloud. Yes, we see a tornado. And after doing this for a number of years, it turned out that the National Weather Service decided that, yes, the Doppler radar was the way to go, and so they began NEXRAD. So we were doing this long before the Doppler radar actually appeared on the scene. In fact, it was over 10 years later. This is another supercell that I chased. This is one of my, I think, the most beautiful ones I've ever seen. This is in Spearman, Texas. This is an F3 tornado, and you can see the entire storm. Looks like one big rotating cylinder. Now, notice how the sun is shining just to the north of the tornado. Now, if you were to look at this on radar, what would you see? Well,